Feeling good, feeling great, feeling good. How are you? Welcome into Timeline T. I am your host, the Sandy, aka Sandy Sweet Jr. Take two in a live stream. It's the first time that's happened. All right. Look like whatever kinked had to be worked out is worked out. We are back up and running. We are also trying to simulcast this thing. Let's see if that's going to work today. Is that also a problem today? Let's see. Yeah, that also seems to be a problem today. Okay, so the servers are very delicate today. So we might just have to lay low and only be on YouTube today. Not sure what's going on trying to see what's up with Kick and tap in with that audience and see what's up over there. But cannot get anything to work over there. So if anyone has any know-how or knows what's good with Kick, let a brother know. Trying to figure that out. Have not been able to navigate that. So if you're familiar with how to live stream on Kick, let me know. Yeah, it's a streaming error. Stop because of an error. Okay. All right, we'll continue without Kick today. Thank you, we can. All right. Let's run this back. So, you see what the title is. You see what the topics are. NBA playoff recap. A lot of games to get into. A lot of... we actually got multiple games. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that was important. The one game per night thing was really trash, really mid. And I think now we get two more games tonight. So we're keeping that energy carrying over from the weekend because the weekend gave us a lot of stuff to talk about. Whether it was Harden and his performance, whether it was the Suns owner, which you see there in the title. We could even get into LeBron, AD. There's a trash narrative by Anthony Davis. You see him there in the topic bar. We will get there. And then Heat Knicks. Can the Heat do the unthinkable as an 8 seed? Can they go up 3-1 tonight against Knicks tape? And take a route that is I haven't seen in a while in terms of how to get to an Eastern Conference Finals. This is one of the most wackiest runs and the most surprising runs. Like even that Hawks run from, a couple of seasons ago where they had the most flukiest run to the conference finals. This is not that. This Heat thing is more substantial because they went through a number one seed. And even though Giannis played 3 of the 5 games, only played 3 of the 5 games, the Heat just looked to be more in sync and just to be better. They weren't looking like they would take advantage of a wounded animal. Surely, if Giannis was healthy, probably doesn't go that way. But it is what it is, and that's kind of what it is. In the playoffs, it's all about health. I'm missing the light. Let's fix that. Okay. Need my little rim light. Pause. Okay. So, NBA playoff recap. We ain't gonna waste too much time. Something tells me this stream is going to be a little wonky today, so let's just push through and get the content out that I think that the people need. This is a live stream that takes all the latest news, notes, rumors, innuendo from the timeline and bring it here to you, condensed and, vetted for one live stream. So this is what we do here. Chat is always active. You can always tap in that way, whether it's live or on the replay. I will communicate, and, I don't just ignore a stream after it's done. Sometimes I repurpose clips. I'm always active in the comments, whether it is live or on the replay. So feel free to tap in, even if you're catching this on the replay. So your man's Matt Ishbia, I believe that's how we pronounce it. Matt Ishbia, the new owner of the Phoenix Suns, who was all the story last night, tries to deflect some of the energy. Great win for the Suns last night in an amazing series so far. That should be and is the only story. That is not true, Matt. Nice try, but that is not true. Suspending or fining anyone over last night's incident would not be right, because there are a lot of people that are wondering or questioning, will Nikola Jokic get fined for, his shove of the Phoenix Suns owner? I have a lot of respect for Jokic and do not want to see anything like that. Excited for Game 5 Go Suns. And then you have the memes. And, it's just open season. And, Ishbia is a former walk-on from Michigan State, and some people insinuated that, well, he must have been in his walk-on bag. He must have thought he was back out there with Mateen Cleaves and Mo Peterson. He must have thought that because Mans went out there and straight flopped last night in front of the world. Probably the best basketball play he's ever made on any stage at any level. So Mans went out there and took a flop and got a tech up on Jokic. They cashed that out, and the Suns went on to get a dub. And it was a huge dub. I won't say an improbable dub, because when you have Book and you have KD, you have at least a chance. You're going to score. If you take a look at what's been happening throughout this series, Phoenix has been able to score 107, which is kind of below what they normally do. But then you get the 87, that's an admiration. But then at the crib, 121 and 129 last night. The Suns are looking more and more like the Suns. And a lot of people, y'all know who y'all be, are kind of saying, hey, and even some of your blue check boys, Fraud A. Smith, is out here saying, hey, the Suns look better without the point fraud. And I'm just sitting here like, well, where the hell y'all been for the last 3 years? I've been saying that the best point guard on the Suns is Cameron Payne. And I know that sounds like a joke. That sounds like trolling. No, it is actual factual. The Phoenix Suns are a better team when Cameron Payne is the point guard. Anytime that the point fraud has been hurt, he's been able to step right in and get it cracking and get it popping. So I understand that, the point fraud is known in a lot of circles. He's held in high regard, but no, ultimately, that man is as much as a fraud today as he has been throughout his entire career. And we know what he did at Wake Forest, what he did while at Wake Forest to Julius Hodge on national television in front of Dickie V. So we know this man's movies. We know how this man ultimately gives it up. And he just continues to do so at every level imaginable. And I think, coming back to the screen, last night was clearly about D-Book. And, Jokic puts up 53. Jamal Murray puts up 28. I can't see that, right? All right, let me see. Where can I get that so y'all can see? I think now y'all can see it. If I go that way. Yep, okay. So 53 for your man's Jokic, and then another 28 for Jamal Murray. And this was spectacular play. And if you look at it, they only hit 3 threes between the two of them. This was a lot of middies. And I've been talking about on this stream and even my podcast, the Sam D podcast. You can catch that. There's a link in the description. Ultimately, the game, as much as we've been talking about threes and bunches and everyone has to be proficient from three, it's threes, layups, and free throws. Those are the most efficient ways to score in today's basketball. There has been a resurgence in the midi. Mid-range matters. And it's not necessarily DeMar DeRozan where the only thing you could do is a mid-range, but when you can be proficient enough from three and be able to drive and be able to draw fouls, that's a triple threat. Now you bring him back to the midi, and Jamal Murray has been doing that a lot. He's been making a lot of tough turnaround fade middies. He's been really doing work. Jokic has been banging in the paint. We might as well just go ahead and get to that. Let's go ahead and get to that shot chart. I've been waiting. I haven't looked at it yet. Normally I try to preview the shot chart, but I've been waiting to look at this Jokic shot chart. Maybe at Denver. Okay. Probably need to zoom out a touch just so you get it in the screen. Yep. Okay. Jokic. Whew. For a man had 53. You see where he was doing work. Doing work in the paint, dog. Doing work on the paint. Only a couple, but his foot was on the line here. And here's the thing about it, right? It didn't seem as though he was scoring 53. Like when he caught KD a couple of times, it gave him buckets. He was destroying Ayton. Even though Ayton certainly played a more energized brand of basketball last night, but from a skill set perspective, I didn't see anything. But in regards to, he wanted to be there last night. So that was certainly a thing. When it comes to Nikola Jokic, what you're seeing here is this is dominant in the paint. And, Shaq made the comment on the TNT broadcast that Nikola Jokic is the best center in the league. And we will get to Joel Embiid and how he looked against the Celtics. But remember, you can't look past the fact that he has a PCL strain and or tear, and he's playing through it, and he's still putting up high 20s, low 30s. So I don't know if I'm willing to go out that window and just say Nikola Jokic because he's the more healthy of the two. So he's been able to put on a more dominant performance. Means that he's just better. He might be better right now because he's healthier right now. But in regards to better overall, it's kind of semantics at this point. But Nikola Jokic, you put up 53. And it was a myriad of shots. And that was kind of the thing for me. It was a myriad of shots of how you get past it, how you get to the 53. 11 dimes, 4 rebounds. That was interesting to me how the Nuggets, who are a bigger team, got out-rebounded on the glass. That was the part where I think the Suns made a concerted effort. KD was definitely more active on the glass. I think didn't Ayton have like 3 rebounds on the first possession? And I think they're all offensive. Yeah, he had 3 rebounds, and all 3 were offensive. So he got all 3 of his offensive, 3 of his 4 in the first quarter, in the first possession. And you see how little he contributed after that. So DeAndre Ayton at -13 in a victory. D-Book puts up 36. He's a -1. KD puts up 36. He's even, puts up a 0 in terms of plus minus. But again, man, it's DeAndre Ayton in only 27 minutes of -13. Whereas Jock Landale in only 20 minutes is a plus 16. Plus 16. That is pretty stark, bruh. I mean, your starting center, former #1 overall pick, is a -13 in 27 minutes. And a guy that's off the pine who is not even a journeyman, he's just an unknown player, unless you're really locked in on Suns basketball all year, which very few people are outside of the Phoenix area. This is a guy that's coming off and he's a plus 16 in only 20 minutes. And he is finishing these games. I know Ayton was on the floor yesterday, but before that, Landale's been getting major run. Landale stood up for DeAndre Ayton in the postgame, tried to defend him. But I mean, ultimately, when you look at this game, when you look at what's happening here, Monty Williams had to go to his bench. TJ Warren, even though he's not bubble TJ, but he's still giving you minutes. And he's a guy that is a threat. Even if the shots don't fall, as you see here, the shots didn't necessarily fall, but he's a threat. He's a guy that when you swing the ball around and he's standing there in the corner, he can knock that shot down. T. Ross, same deal. He's a guy that you could put him out there. He'll give you 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes between these guys, and they can get a breather. But Landry Shamet, this 19, that was the difference. You're not expecting this. You might think the bench as a whole might score 19, especially for the Suns, because they have so few guys. But almost a 20 piece from Landry Shamet, that was the difference to me. Book and KD are going to get theirs. There's not a game where they're not going to get theirs. But giving up Landry, because you see, literally no one else scored in double figures. Literally no one else. And Shamet was bold with it. 5 threes, like this was the Landry Shamet game. So not only have you gotten a D-Book game where he went crazy in game 3, now you're getting, KD and Book did what they always do, but now you're getting a Landry Shamet game. And normally when you have a team like this where you have so few roster guys, when you get a game from an other, that's huge. Because Book and KD can win you at least 1, maybe 2, individually. So Book won game 3. Now you get a other game with Landry Shamet. We would assume you're going to get at least 1 KD crazy performance. And then who knows what would happen if this series goes 7. The Nuggets are playing with their food. They played with their food in these 2 games. Now, I'm not saying they need to go out there and stop D-Book and Kevin Durant. I don't think there is anyone who could just go out there and stop those 2. But Jokic gives you 50, and Murray does Murray things, gives you 28, and you still lose? You can't lose these games. When Jokic plays like that, you can't just assume he's going to go 20 for 30. 20 for 30, and only 2 of those was off threes. He went 18 of 26. That's hella problematic, bruh. Hella problematic. Some ain't right. Some ain't right. Michael Porter Michael Porter Jr. loves his own shot. The shots just weren't falling. 2 of 9 from 3. He's a hard guy. He's a hard guy to critique because his skill set is so varied. He can take you off the dribble. He has a jimmy. He can post up a little bit. I would love to see him in this matchup where he gets 6'10". Even if it's the tough middies, like how Jamal Murray is taking. Let's see if we get to the shot chart again. Like the middies that Jamal Murray is taking are tough, but they're off the post, and he feels he has an advantage. I don't know why Michael Porter Jr. doesn't feel he has that same advantage on whoever is guarding him, especially in the paint. Look at this shot chart. This shot chart, if you're Michael Porter Jr., you're 6'10". And yes, your primary skill set may be as a shooter, but against an undersized team like the Suns that has a lack of depth, everyone should be focused on, yo, if you have a size mismatch, go to the paint, dog. Especially if the threes ain't falling. The threes ain't falling like when is this 3 in the third quarter, first quarter. Like second and fourth quarter, nothing. Fourth quarter, what do you do? Look at this. You can't have this where all your shots are from the outside except for one here late. It's early in the fourth. So all the rest of your shots were threes. All the rest of your shots were threes. Third quarter. I mean, he was, what is this? Only 2 shots in the paint the entire second half. Second quarter, only 1 shot. He literally disappeared. Active in the first quarter and next to nothing the rest of the way. So a few things outside of, Jokic going crazy, Jamal Murray being Jamal Murray. You have to look at the fact that the Nuggets gave this away because no one could figure out how to stop Landry Shamet. And unfortunately for Michael Porter Jr., the shot wasn't falling early from the outside, and he kept taking them, and then he just kind of disappeared late in the game. That is extremely problematic if you are a Denver Nuggets fan. That was a bad look for MPJ. He's too talented to have a second half like that. Now they go back to Denver, and it's tied up. And now you have to factor in the point fraud and whether or not he comes back in this series. Because allegedly, if he's not, I think he gets tested later this week. He gets re-examined later this week. But once you look past that, it's like, all right, well, now that they're cooking, what does Monty do? He's going to put the point fraud right back in there? When now you have people like Stephen A. Smith, Fraud A. Smith, who's saying the thing that I've been saying on my content for at least 3 years, is that Cam Payne is the better point guard. This team does not play as well with the point fraud as opposed to either no point guard or with Cameron Payne. Like, I've been saying that. So it'll be a fun thing to watch. But Jokic was ridiculous last night. D-Book, I mean, Blue Check Boys are now finally saying D-Book might be the best shooting guard in the league. Like, that's old news over here on this side. He's a cooker. He's been that. He's played well. He's been the point guard for this franchise even before the point fraud got there, like back when Earl Watson was the coach. Like, D-Book's been him, man, for a long time. I love when the casuals or the media who, has to focus on other things and then tries to spin the block on basketball when it comes to playoff time and tries to leap in there with their hot takes and their analysis. Is like, yo, dogs, tell me you don't watch the games without telling me you don't watch the games. Is someone proclaiming today, oh, I think D-Book might be the best shooting guard in the league? It's like, well, shit. No shit, Sherlock. Like, we've been here. Because who else is it going to be? That was always my debate. Well, who else is it? If it ain't D-Book, who is it? James Harden's not a shooting guard. Who is it? Dame Lillard is not a shooting guard. Steph Curry, by definition, is not a shooting guard. And who is it? What's I mean, Clay? Clay was never better than D-Book. Clay was better defensively than D-Book at his peak, which we all should be able to admit now. Klay Thompson is no longer at that peak. But who else was it supposed to be? So we have that series. Let's slide over to the other game yesterday. Celtics, Sixers pull it out, even this up at 2. Take it back to Boston for game 5. This game was hella dramatic. PJ Tucker gets the MVP for me because he lit a fire under Embiid late in the game. And it didn't necessarily speak to, once he spoke to him, Embiid ran off mad buckets, but it was just the energy of how Embiid attacked the bucket was different. Al Horford was clearly in Joel Embiid's head, and they were about to trick that off and go down 3-1. Al Horford was rejuvenated. You know, he had a failed stint with Philly, so he gets a lot of slack for the 1 year he was there. He gets a lot of blame for the lack of success that year. And he looked like he was going to be the difference maker in turning the tide and giving the Celtics a commanding 3-1 lead. And then they proceeded to trick it off. And Jaylen Brown was in the post-game press conference saying, no, maybe he needs to demand the rock more. 16 shots. I mean, yeah, I'm not really rolling per se, but let's see. How many shots he got in the second half? Oh, he only got 5 shots. Marcus Smart took more shots. Derek White took more shots. Brogdon had the same. Okay, now I see why. We get shots in the no shot, not 1 shot attempt in OT. What about fourth quarter? Okay, took 3 shots, but Marcus Smart shot more than all of them. Okay, so yeah, he's got a gripe. Jaylen Brown's got a gripe. Problem is, they still don't have a point guard. I thought the whole point of them bringing in Malcolm Brogdon is so that they could have a point guard. Marcus Smart is not a point guard. And it's always been interesting to me how they try to do this where, obviously clearly Tatum and Brown could both bring the rock up as well as Derek White and hell, even Horford. But you go get a deal for Malcolm Brogdon for the low. I felt once he proved that he's healthy, which maybe this is a sign that maybe he's not healthy, but once he proven he was healthy, he would be starting. Did he start any games this year? Not 1 start this year for Malcolm Brogdon. That's a little weird to me because I think the problem with, Jaylen Brown not getting enough shots is once the rock is in Tatum's hands, more times than not, that shot's going up. He's got a lot of Kobe in him. He does a lot of Mamba mentality stuff, and this is what you get when it comes to that. And then Marcus Smart, he always has the chip on his shoulder to prove that he's better than what people think he is. So that shot's going up. And then Derek White has been empowered in this offense over the last couple of years, and now he wants to make sure he gets some shots up. So when you have someone like Malcolm Brogdon, who, prior at his peak, this was a guy that could give you 7 dimes, 17 and 7 at his peak in Indiana. He's been around 6 dimes, even 20 and 6. This is a guy that can score and, facilitate, and we know he could play top tier defense. He's still that type of dude. Let's see, what's his defensive rating? Where is it? Per 100 possessions. Here we go. Well, it certainly hasn't been that great since he's been. Well, when he became a bucket, the defensive rating got worse. Okay, that's interesting to keep an eye on. I'll keep an eye on him defensively. Still see if he's still this dude right here, the 108, 111 guy. 111 his rookie year. When he surprised people, but if you know basketball, it was not a surprise. But ultimately, why would you bring in Malcolm Brogdon if all he's going to do is come off the bench? Now, if you're telling me he's still hurt, then okay, that's one thing. If you're telling me he still has some, things to work through in terms of health, maybe he doesn't have maybe the body can't hold up for 30 plus minutes, although he gave you 35 last night. Now, again, you throw in OT and all of that, but I think Malcolm Brogdon should be starting, and I think he can facilitate from a point guard perspective to where Jaylen Brown is not complaining about getting more shots. I mean, the second half of a game where they could go up 3-1 and take control of this series, he only gets 5 shots up. While Tatum's getting 8, Marcus Smart's getting 7, Derek White's getting 6. Like that's if he's your second best player, he cannot be fourth in shots attempted in a pivotal game 4. Can't happen. But such is life. It happened, and that's why they're going back to Boston 2 up. Let's move towards what we got tonight. Tonight, we got a couple of great games. Oh, I hate this website when it does that. All right, schedule. They make you take the long way around. All right, so we have 7:30 Eastern Knicks Heat, and then we got Golden State Lake Show. Both game 4s. Both where, the home teams can go up 3-1. So the Lake Show and the Heat stole one on the road. They held home court for game 3, both in pretty dominant fashion. Now they look to, escape the fate of Boston and Denver by trying to go up 3-1. I think the team that's more likely to go up 3-1 is the Heat. I think the Heat have an easier foe to battle in the Knicks. But I think I want to focus more, first of all, on Golden State and the Lake Show. Golden State and the Lake Show, to me, the games on Saturday were such a throw-out game because, the blowout was on. And trust, I will get to the Anthony Davis stuff about whether or not, he's every other day or whatever, alternate day Davis, whatever. Like, it's crazy. It's stupid. Anyway, so Golden State is out here. And Golden State, if you look at it, Klay is not Klay anymore. He played well in their one win, but just time after time watching him, he's just not that guy. And if they don't get nothing from Klay and they don't get nothing from the habitual nut hitter or JaMychal Green, so you see how they ran back JaMychal Green to see if they could find something, if they have unearthed something. Nope. JaMychal Green went back to JaMychal Green. He's an other. It was a cute maneuver to start him to kind of shake things up, but he went back to being JaMychal Green. They started paying attention to him, and it was a wrap for that. Moses Moody was getting some good run here. Looney might not be right. And if he's not right, plus they want to go small here, he's not going to have a lot of room to get it off in this series. And that's going to be a problem when you're going up against Anthony Davis. And as much as you want to say the every other day or alternate day Davis or whatever, like, okay, 7 of 10. He only took 10 shots, and he gave you 25 and 13 with 4 blocks. Like, it's ridiculous, the type of slander. But again, this game was over so early. Is not much you can really extract. The second quarter and the third quarter was such a barrage. And then even the fourth quarter, it was really a rout. But like the second and third quarters were really where the difference was. To me, you would expect a virtuoso performance from Steph because his team is down. They cannot lose tonight. They cannot lose tonight. This is a clear, obviously it's a must win. No one wants to go down 3-1, especially this Golden State Warrior team, because I don't think they got the legs to come back from 3-1. It's arguable if the Lakers have the legs to come back from 3-1, but I have more of a faith in them than the Warriors. I just have a curiosity in regards to when are we going to find out what's really happening in this locker room? Because I think the Andrew Wiggins thing, even though we were told what happened and he was out for a very long time. I don't think his legs are underneath him yet. This is a guy that I felt should have been Finals MVP last year. I just don't think he's right now. He's giving you what he can. He's trying to get his conditioning up and everything that goes along with that, but I'm not sure if he's fully invested. Not to say that I've seen anything, but it's just this is not A. Wiggins. When you look at what he can do with this team, not Minnesota where he was allowed to be a nut. Like on this team, what he's been able to do, he just hasn't looked like the guy we've seen over the last 2 years. At least not as of right now. And they're going to need him. If you're not going to give Kuminga a real run, if you're not going to give, Moses Moody is okay, but Kuminga's the one for me where I'm like, I don't understand what he's done to Steve Kerr and why he can't get no major run, but DiVincenzo, I could do without that. Jordan Poole has looked lost this entire series. $500K for Ice Spice. He's had a rough week. He's had a rough week. He's had a rough week. And I guess we got to go Miami, New York, right? I guess we have to go Miami, New York. We kind of sort of don't have to, but, you know, we try to keep it fair and balanced here. Game 3 was an admiration. It was a blowout. I think they put the wall up for Jalen Brunson, and they allowed Julius to shoot, and Julius could not hit a shot, as you see, 0 for 5. But they're focusing their defense on Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson, they putting up that wall for Jalen Brunson that the Heat brought out in the bubble to stymie Giannis. And it's very interesting to see a little guy in Jalen Brunson go up against that wall as opposed to the Nigerian freak Giannis Antetokounmpo. And right now, the Knicks just don't have enough dudes. It's a great story. Their NBA Finals was beating Cleveland because of all the storylines with Mitchell and all of that stuff. Like, that was their NBA Finals. Whether it was going to be the Bucks or in this case the Heat, I felt they were going to take their medicine, and I think they're about to take their medicine. I just don't believe in them. I'll eat those words if I have to, but I just don't believe in this team. They just don't have enough horses. Jalen Brunson, he's good, and you know the whole narrative of, oh, this proves that that he's now underpaid and all of that. Like, yeah, that's cool, but to say he's underpaid as a what? A number one option on the team that overachieves if they make it to the second round? Okay. And then Julius, I mean, if he's not on the trade block this summer, I don't know what the Knicks are doing. I would try to package him and RJ quick, fast, in a hurry. Try to get both of them up out of there because I think RJ is another guy that he's just not it. He's never going to be. You drafted him number 3 overall to be a guy that can lead this team. He's proven in the time that he's been here that he is no more than a complimentary piece. So I think it's a wrap for RJ Barrett. Move on from him if you can. If you can find someone to take him, I would do that. I mean, look at the Heat. It's Jimmy. It's Jimmy. You get a sprinkle of Bam, and then you get a couple of things from the others. In Game 3, it was Max Strus. You know, you've had Kevin Love have moments. He's been hitting the glass. He's been doing great stuff with the outlet passes. Lowry's been a menace. You know, like the Heat are going to take this series. I mean, I don't really see anything that would make me question anything else, but I really don't see anything where the Knicks can do to really push this series to win this series. I just don't see it. I don't see it whatsoever. All right. Colts and Ravens QBs. All right. Colts All-Pro running back Jonathan Taylor says his new QB, Anthony Richardson, reminds him of Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson with the size of Cam Newton. So Anthony Richardson has been getting a lot of praise since being drafted number 4 overall to the Indianapolis Colts. And one thing that's been surprising is that there's been a lot of conversations about Anthony Richardson starting week 1. Now, that's not something any of us really thought of when it came to Anthony Richardson, because all the experts kept saying, well, he's a project. He needs time to sit. He needs to learn. He needs to watch. Now, there are things that need to be ironed out, like his footwork and his mechanics. But they made it seem like his footwork and mechanics was such a detriment that there's no way imaginable that you could start him week 1. Well, now, if we're going by a lot of stuff like this reporting here, I'm told Indy has gotten to work with Anthony Richardson in a hurry, trying to get that install going because the pleasantries are over. They've done their homework. Now they want to get him ready to play because a lot of teams I've talked to believe that he'll possibly be the week 1 starter. Now, this is according to, Florida Network's Jeremy Fowler on SportsCenter. Now, again, we heard nothing of this prior. It was always, he needs to sit, he needs to sit, he needs to sit, he needs to sit. Now we're getting reports. They believe he'll possibly be the week 1 starter. Now, he has, Gardner Minshew behind him? So, I mean, you might as well, if that's all you got, then you might as well just throw him out there and sink or swim. He has some receivers there. He has Jonathan Taylor there. They still have some remnants of the offensive line that was pretty good or really good not that long ago. So why not throw him to the Wolves? Why not do like Justin Fields and the Bears and throw him to the Wolves and let's see. Let's see. And speaking of Justin Fields, your man's Dan Orlovsky says Justin Fields is going to be in the MVP conversation this year. With the improvements they've made to the offensive line, including Darnell Wright at the 9th pick overall, when you look at the fact that they brought in DJ Moore in the draft day, and well, not draft day, in the trade from moving back from 1 to 9. When you look at the fact that they got Chase Claypool for a second rounder in season last year, when you look at the fact that they should Darnell Mooney back by at some point in late training camp, early preseason, he feels that the Bears are going to have an offense that's going to be reckoned with and that Justin Fields is going to be in that MVP conversation. Now, the teenager in me, which was a hardcore Bears fan, would be going wild if I was still him. If I was still that young kid that was a ridiculously strong Chicago Bears fan, I would be going crazy. Unfortunately, I smartened up and I learned that fandom is a mental illness. So I said, you know what? I'm good off that. I'm just going to enjoy the game of football and enjoy all sports and just not be a fan of any of them. Just be a fan of the game itself. Call me Rob Lowe with the NFL hat. But this is where we're at here, where Justin Fields, they have the weapons. You can question running back. You could question running back because, you know, they lost Montgomery. Not that he's a huge guy anyway, but it's like, you know, if you had to nitpick, you could nitpick that position. Tight end as well, unless you're a big Cole Kmet guy. But Justin Fields, we saw it. You saw it last year. He's special. And that's with no help. Now they have predicated this entire offseason outside of just shoring up the linebacking core on the defensive side. But on the offensive side, they have done everything that they could to surround him with more help. So Justin Fields. So we have another young QB. We got Anthony Richardson potentially starting week 1. We have, you know, Dan Orlovsky jumping out the window saying Justin Fields is going to be in the MVP conversation. And then we have the Ravens would have, quote, considered, end quote, which is, again, this means it's not really a thing, but it's a Monday. We need to have stories out here. We need to get some clicks. Let's go ahead and make this a thing. The Ravens would have, quote unquote, considered drafting QB Will Levis in the first round had Lamar Jackson not agreed to a contract extension prior to the draft. After talking to people around the NFL, Fowler believes that finalizing a deal for Jackson before Thursday night was prudent for Baltimore. So now let's take that, right? And I don't want to make this a Lamar thing because I know how people get when I get worked up about Lamar. Wouldn't that mean that he had the leverage? If we're to believe that this is a legitimate story and a story that has merit behind it, wouldn't this mean that Lamar had the leverage? Because it would have forced them to change up their draft plans. It would have changed them. It would have forced them to draft a quarterback. Now let's play that out. If they would have drafted Will Levis at 22, Lamar is now on the tag for 32.4. They're going to pay Will Levis first-round quarterback money and have Lamar on the franchise tag. Wouldn't that open up possibilities for A, Lamar to get traded? B, what's B? B would be you force their hand. Well, now it's a QB competition. So now you're forcing the Ravens to spend more salary cap on the QB position, something they clearly were not trying to do in the first place. So you would have had them either A, burn a draft pick because they can't agree to come to terms with you, or it would have forced them even more to actually validate trade reports that Lamar insinuated during this press conference, even though he then tried to backpedal and not talk about it. But The information was out there. He said teams were in contact with him. So clearly, if teams were in contact with him, then there was some interest, or at least at the baseline, a gauging of interest on Lamar Jackson. So if that's going to be the case, you could have forced the Ravens' hand, called their bluff. But ultimately, we know what happened, so it is what it is. All right, Anthony Davis. Let's tear down a trash narrative. So there was a narrative on the timeline saying that Anthony Davis plays well every other day, right? Alternate day Davis or something like that. AD stands for alternate days, all of that, right? Let's go ahead and look up the game logs. Now you tell me what is alternate day about these numbers I'm going to run down. Now, if you just go purely off points, you can get that lazy narrative off, right? Because it's 22-13, 31-12, 31-16. Even though this 16 was a 16-14 game and they blew out the Grizzlies by 40, okay? They blew out the Grizzlies by 40, but we're going to use that number anyway because it fits along with the other narratives, right? So, and then we have 30, and then we have 11. And again, he was in there in a 27-point loss, right? And he just didn't get a lot of shots up. But okay. Here's the problem to where that narrative goes crazy. He had double-doubles in 5 games straight. Even on the games that they're saying he was alternate day Davis, it was still a double-double with multiple blocks. Now, if that narrative is just about him scoring and purely that, I mean, that's lazy. Because alternate day Davis, to me, if you're talking about someone plays every other day, then that to me means you're saying this dude only plays hard, plays well, or is successful every other game. A guy giving you 16 and 14 with 5 blocks is a day off? That's an alternate day. 16 and 14 and 5 blocks. Okay. And even if you want to kill him for the double-double of 12 and 11 in a win, by the way, in 40 minutes, by the way, he had 4 blocks in that game with 2 steals. But okay. Narratives are going to narrative. And that right there is one of the most laziest narratives I've ever heard. But, he just can't win with people. When it was street clothes, whether it's street clothes or whether it's right here. They literally have it as one of his nicknames. When this is not his nickname. It's right next to Wilt Davis, by the way. So figure that out. He's street clothes, but he's also Wilt. Make your mind up. Well, which one is it? Right? So problematic narratives when it comes to Anthony Davis, but it's nothing new because this is just the enigma of how people perceive him. Because if we compare his Laker tenure in terms of missed games, I'm pretty sure LeBron's missed more. But no one would ever say LeBron is street clothes. But, narratives. We go to narrative. Let's come off the screen here and see if we have anything new here on the timeline. We go through the timeline nice and easy. For those who care, the NFL schedule will be released Thursday of this week. There will be a lot of futures bets placed on Thursday. Get your accounts at whatever prospective sportsbook ready. Because when you see the layout of that schedule, that's when, because we already know which divisions have the easiest schedules, at least on paper, right? We know it's the NFC South and the AFC South have the easiest schedules, projected strength of schedule coming into this coming season. So we'll get the official layout of the schedules on Thursday, but just so you're ahead of the game, maybe you want to place that future bet ahead of the schedule being released. But the NFC South in particular, but also AFC South, weakest projected strength of schedule for this upcoming season. Okay, let's see. The Andrew Luck thing, I don't really care about that because like it seems like teams call Andrew Luck every year to see if he wants to come out of retirement. So I don't really get wrapped up in that. Irisay had something to say, but to me that doesn't really mean anything. Doesn't really register. Let's see. Yeah, not much there. Let's see any NBA stuff. Do we get any news about if Jokic is going to be suspended? Nothing new yet on Nikola Jokic. Scott Foster will be on Lakers Warriors tonight. Bet accordingly. Bet accordingly. Let's see. Yeah, it's problematic when you look at what Jokic did last night. The 53 points in the L. I mean, that's a loss you can't have, to be quite honest with you. That's a loss where it's really going to be unfortunate looking back. Like that could be a game that could shift this series because the longer this series goes, you have to assume it has to favor the Nuggets just because every game they're rolling out with two guys who can go for 30 easy. And while the Nuggets can do that, their two guys have to work a lot harder than the Suns guys. The Suns guys in Book and KD, they lost their point guard and they still going out here just putting up 30 pieces, 36 for both of them last night. Book had a 50 piece the other night. Like it's light for them. It's nothing for them. That's going to be a thing to keep an eye on because Jokic had to work very hard to get that 53, even though DeAndre Ayton isn't much defensively. And even though Landale, he tries hard, but, you know, he's not really a guy that, you know, he's more of an effort dude. And then even KD got Swiss cheesed up on Jokic a couple times. So the opportunities will be there, but that takes a lot out of someone to put up those types of shots. Like that takes a lot out of someone to be able to, you know, have to put up, what did he put up? How many shots? 30 shots, man. And a tough 30, because we saw it on the shot chart earlier. If you go into the shot chart and you look at Jokic, man, them shots was heavy in the paint, dogs. There's a lot of shots in the paint. That means a lot of posting up. That means a lot of screening and rolling. Not even picking and popping, just screening and rolling. Let me get my telestrator. Like how we was trying to break down last week. When you come down and set these screens up top, you know, you set a screen over here, and then you dive to your spot. Either you dive to the rim, or you dive to your spot here to get the floater. So, you know, Jokic comes down, whoever, maybe Jamal Murray, he sets the screen here. And once he sets that screen there, he's either going to pop back out for a three, he's going to dive to the rim, depending on if the defense sags or, you know, tries to trap, or he can drag, he get the drop off here, and then he's been killing with the little floaters. So 3 options in a simple screen. But that's taxing because you got to put your body on somebody every time to get that going. Put your body on somebody here. You got to read the defense. You either pick and pop and back out here. You'll do a standard pick and pop. You're going to dive. Or you're going to go here to the little mid-range to get the little floaties. Or to do a secondary post here. So it's a lot here to be wary of. And that's a lot. That's taxing. It would not shock me if Jokic... Well, how many days off do they have? Let's start there. I don't want to jump out the window yet until I know how many days off they have. When this game, you would think they would have the schedule here. It's the one problem with this website. The schedule is always difficult. Playoffs. And then, of course, they don't have it there. Okay, basketball reference. I bow down. To your convoluted layout. All right, so next game is Tuesday. Oh yeah, no, I don't see Jokic going crazy. Back at the crib, high altitude. After putting up 30 shots. Hopefully they don't need him to put up 30 shots, but if they need him to put up 30 shots, that's asking a lot from him. That is asking a hell of a whole lot from Nikola Jokic to be able to get that off. Let's see what else we can find here on the timeline. Oh, yeah, showed you the Jaylen Brown. Yeah, he did not look happy. I guess I got to demand the ball more a little bit, and we ran down his numbers. He didn't get a lot of shots in the second half. You know, Marcus Smart got more shots than him. Derek White got the same amount of shots as him. You don't want to see that. And I really trying to figure out why is Malcolm Brogdon not starting when he's the only point guard on the roster. But, you know, to each his own. I'm not the coach. Did we talk about the beard? We talked about the beard. Beard went crazy. I still think, you know, PJ Tucker saved that game because he was able to, you know, invigorate Joel Embiid to be more aggressive and not necessarily just to take just shots like jump shots, but to be assertive in his shot taking. And it was very important. It was a very important pivotal moment. That's why you have a guy like PJ Tucker on that roster. That's why you have him there. He's important to what they do there. He's not necessarily there as a scorer. He's more so just there as a dude that can get it off in terms of, you know, set screens, fight defensively, chase down loose balls. He's a gritty guy. Now, he wasn't that in college, so don't get that twisted. He could be a bucket if he had to, but at this level, he can't be a bucket. So he has turned himself into a three-point shooter, a defensive specialist of sorts, and a guy that has lasted a very long time in this league. All right, let's see. Andre Iguodala may be on his way back. He's expected to practice sometime next week, assuming they're still playing. Let's see. Yep, I think that's about it for us. We're going to tap out early today. Got some things to take care of. So, all right. I think that will do it for us. We'll be back here tomorrow. We'll definitely be leading off talking about the two games that are happening tonight in terms of Heat Knicks at 7. And then we move on to Lakers Warriors. So you know where we're starting with tomorrow. If you want to tap in, be here at 4 p.m. Eastern. I know we had a little bit of an issue with the beginning of the stream, but I'll do some testing in a little bit here and try to figure that out and get that going. But thank y'all for pulling up. I appreciate it. I know NBA isn't everyone who subscribed to this channel's forte, but you know I talk all sports, so I'm not going to ignore NBA. So if you'd like NBA, tap in. I'll be doing a lot more content. Gonna be doing some shorts here in a bit to kind of get back into that. But yeah, Timeline T, 4 p.m. Eastern. I'll check y'all tomorrow. I am the Sam D, aka Sam Duzman Jr. Peace.